the most museums of history are basically inspired by the colonial idea of a museum. And British started the idea of museum. And what was in the museum? There were objects with labels, sometimes well curated, sometimes not well curated, and sometimes stolen, sometimes not stolen. But they were basically storehouses of objects with labels. That was the idea of a museum, and they were not for sale. Now, why should we follow the old definition of a museum? So, what I do is I create museums, but my museums are museums of contemporary art. They're museums of history, but there is nothing which is old. I study history. I study the history of the subject which the museum will represent, and then I have a lot of artists coming. I lecture them on that history, and they create work in response to that history. And so all the works are contemporary works of art created in response to history, and all the information which needs to be given is given in just a 15 minutes documentary. So once you see the documentary, you know about information. The rest of the museum is not information. Many museums have big posters with all details written. Who has the time to read all that? And secondly, why waste a building space if you want to just put some text? You just print a book. So that's why Museum of Goa is successful, because there is not much to read, and we also have modern technologies where you can hear the stories. So that's what Museum of Goa is about, and Museum of Goa is also a hybrid of a museum and a gallery. So it is essentially a museum. That's because 98% of the people who come to museum are not buyers. They are school students. We encourage them. So this is essentially a museum, but many works are for sale, because artists also need to make a living, and many of the works have given to me on consignment. Some we buy, which what we can afford, but some are on consignment. So it's nice that the artist gets an opportunity to display and sell. So it's a hybrid of a museum and of a gallery, but we are not art dealers. We are essentially art promoters.